Right now on Hoosier News Source, we get a look at a day in the life of a contact tracer and students return home. How will their classes adjust to the time changes?
And I have updates on Hurricane Iota as well as your Thanksgiving break forecast. Hoosier News Source starts now.
Hello and welcome to Hoosier News Source. I'm Bridget Taylor. We begin this week's episode with the latest COVID-19 updates. Andrew Lamparski is on campus and has the new numbers from the university. Andrew?
Thanks, Bridget. This week we saw another overall increase in COVID cases on campus. We're up to 1.7% from 1.4% last week. Out of 8,900 tests, 151 came back positive, the highest number we've seen since mid-September. There was another significant jump in cases in Greek housing, up to nearly 6% from 3.4% last week. Residence halls are exactly what they were last week, 1.4%. And finally, off-campus positivity nearly tripled from 0.6% to 1.7%. Now, this all comes as students are getting ready to head home for Thanksgiving, but the university is offering free departure testing here at Franklin Hall and up at Assembly Hall. Those tests are being offered in place of random mitigation testing this week. The tests give students a chance to feel a bit more comfortable heading home for the holidays. But the university has pointed out that getting tested doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's safe to go home to see family. And that's all for this week's campus COVID update. For Hoosier News Source, I'm Andrew Lamparski. Bridget, back to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Everyone's heard about contact tracers, but very few know what actually goes on behind the scenes. Contact tracers call people who have been exposed to COVID-19. They give advice to those on how quarantine or self-isolation works directly from their homes. Contact tracers help stop and slow the spread of the coronavirus. Rebecca Braham, who works on Indiana University Bloomington, says her experience has plenty of surprises.
Going into this, I honestly thought students would be a little bit more apprehensive. I remember how I was when I was a student, and I have been extremely surprised and pleased, like how everyone is really trying to do the right thing.
As IU closes for the rest of the year, remember to practice social distancing and good hygiene. While contact tracers reach out to those who may have been exposed to COVID-19, it is also important for everyone to know if there's an immunity from COVID-19 after infection. IU Athletics have notified trainers that after a student athlete tests positive for COVID-19, they don't need to be retested for another 3 months afterwards. Infectious disease specialist Tom Rismalius confirms that there is indeed a time frame of immunity of the virus.
There's some evidence that reinfection in that first 3-month period of time should be very uncommon.
The CDC continues to encourage social distancing and wearing masks during that time. As Indiana sees record-breaking increases in COVID-19 hospitalizations and death, Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb is reinstating several coronavirus restrictions. On Friday, Holcomb signed an executive order that limits the crowd sizes in counties as higher risk levels of coronavirus spread. Crowd sizes are now limited to 20 people in the highest risk of red counties and 50 people in the next riskiest orange counties. The next order will also limit capacity as K-12 and extracurricular events. The statewide mask mandate has also been extended for another month. Currently, Monroe County is seeing 10 to 99 new cases per week per 100,000 residents, putting it into the yellow category. If you remember, Holcomb decided in late September to lift nearly all of Indiana's business and crowd size restrictions. Since then, Indiana hospitals have seen a 200% increase in COVID-19 patients, and the average death rate has gone from 10 people to 38 people a day. We also report that Holcomb is in the isolation after potentially being exposed to COVID-19. IUSTV News will continue to provide you with updates as they come in. We are less than a week away from classes moving online and for the rest of the semester. I spoke with some students who may be having a harder time tuning into classes every day. The problem? Time changes. Take a look.
One downfall of online classes is the time change for synchronized classes, no matter if that difference is large or small.
My largest concern is like the homework due date time and like quizzes and stuff, because I do plan to work when I go home and I do plan to like do other things. So the 11:59 deadline is easy for me, so I can sit down at like 8 p.m., 7 p.m. and do my homework. But now I'm going to have to do everything earlier on in the day to meet the earlier time constraint deadline because it's 3 hours difference.
One IU junior is from India and was affected by a drastic time change last spring when the university first went online due to the COVID-19 pandemic. India is 10 hours and 30 minutes ahead of Indiana time.
One class was around 7 p.m. in Indian time zone, so it wasn't bad, but it was a project-based class where I had to do a lot of teamwork, and it was hard to match up the times with all the members of my team. And another class, which we had sometimes presentation at 3 a.m. in the morning.
While waking up for a 9 a.m. class here in Bloomington may seem like no big deal, that suddenly gets a lot harder when it becomes 6 a.m. in California. Or when a class scheduled for 4 p.m. here in Bloomington makes you wake up in the middle of the night in India.
The university plans to return to campus for second semester, and in-person classes will commence on February 8th.
The spring semester begins online on Tuesday, January 19th, and in-person classes start on Monday, February 8th. Coming up on Hoosier News Source, we hear from the founder of the Rainbow Coalition and what the organization has been up to. Plus, Caroline Clare joins us with this week's weather forecast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hoosier News Source. Caroline Clare joins us for a look at some holiday weather. Caroline?
Thanks, Bridget. Hurricane Iota has made landfall Monday night as a Category 4 hurricane with 155 miles per hour winds, just short of being a Category 5. Not only is Iota the 30th named storm this season, but is the strongest hurricane this late in November on record. Making landfall just 15 miles south of where Eta struck, Nicaragua is being flooded with storm surges up to 15 feet and massive amounts of rainfall. As we make our way back to the U.S., we will be expecting a rather calm weekend as we head into Thanksgiving break. If you are heading out this weekend, it'll be relatively calm, 62 and 64, until we head into Sunday where there is a slight rain chance and 63. So if you are waiting until Sunday to leave, or if you are sticking around, just make sure you're weather aware as roads may be slick. Before we head off into our break, let's take a look at what to expect for the rest of the week here in Bloomington. Like I said earlier, relatively calm week, 50s, even going into the 60s. And as we make our way into early next week, rain chances will increase. But partly sunny, 60s for the rest of the week. Make sure to stay safe around the holidays and have a great break. Bridget, back to you.
Thanks, Caroline. Before students leave for holiday break, a new group of on-campus spoke to Hoosier News Source about their mission and goals. Ella Rhodes joined us in studio for that story. Ella?
Thanks, Bridget. A few weeks ago, the Rainbow Coalition held a rally advocating for underrepresented students. But they're pushing for change both inside and outside diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI. I sat down with their founder, Kai Freeman, to learn more.
Kai Freeman felt a call to action to start the Rainbow Coalition at IU to represent all students.
We're not monolithic. We don't just care about DEI.
The coalition is made up of over 90 members and partners with over 40 organizations on campus.
We are in the business of building relationships, and through that we can make substantive change because these are the people that have these various connections. You don't ever want to burn a bridge if you've never even walked down to there.
The first demand from the coalition is requesting transparency from IU student government.
I want to emphasize we're not adversarial to IU student government. We're adversarial to the structure of it.
Hoosier News Source reached out to IUSG, but they declined to comment about the coalition.
We're starting to see movement and starting to see traction very much so on the demands and things that we wanted from IUSGs.
A few Rainbow Coalition members are also a part of IUSG.
I want to say we want the same thing, but the way we want to go about acquiring them is relatively different.
The coalition says in order to dismantle a system, they must look at all parts of it regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion.
They don't just belong at the DEI table. Like when you're talking about sexual misconduct, that affects people of color. When you're talking about academic affairs, these all affect all of these students, but you can't truly serve all of these students if they're not represented.
The focus of the organization is to hold people in power accountable.
It's always better when you present a united front dealing with any issue. Very much so, and standing in your power. And that's one thing that, no one can really take from you in any capacity, shape, way, or form.
Next semester, the Rainbow Coalition plans to keep advocating for diverse representation of students and fight the challenges students face from the pandemic. Bridget, back to you.
Thanks, Ella. Advocating for student diversity can even be done online. That's the way November's National Native American Heritage Month is being celebrated here on campus. All month long, IU is highlighting narratives of Native American communities along with their traditions. Although COVID-19 has limited in-person interaction, the First Nations Educational Cultural Center uploads webinars and educational pieces to teach and celebrate Native heritage, both present and past. To learn more about IU's ancestral homelands and resources, visit firstnations.indiana.edu. During the 3-month winter session, students may have to leave their cars on campus. With a CH permit, the vehicle can remain parked within the correct zone. ST permits must be parked at Gate 11 of the purple lot on the stadium or at the ST zones on Jordan Avenue. Students should purchase a garage permit if they prefer their vehicles to be kept in a garage or a covered parking during the intersession. Vehicles must be parked with a valid permit or they will be at risk of a towed and owners must pay a ticket. The Hoosiers had another big win over the weekend against Michigan State. Drew Fry joins us in studio with the latest on IU football and more. Drew?
Thanks, Bridget. And for the first time since 1967, Indiana football has won a game as a top 10 team. The Hoosiers shut out Michigan State over the weekend, extending their record to 4-0, ahead of a critical matchup against Ohio State this Saturday. The Buckeyes are on a 24-game winning streak against the Hoosiers, most recently with a dominant win last season. But last year's Indiana team hadn't beaten Penn State, or Michigan State, or Michigan. Saturday will mark the first time both Indiana and Ohio State are ranked in the top 10 when they play each other. The winner of this game will hold sole possession of first place in the Big Ten East. And that's all for sports this week. Bridget, back to you.
Thanks, Drew, and thank you for watching this week's episode and season finale of Hoosier News Source. To learn more about this week's stories and to watch our winter story series, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at IUSTV News. I'm Bridget Taylor from Bloomington, Indiana. We'll see you next time.